Well, and I'm sure you met, you talked about having a lot of the people who were in that very first battle with you, or maybe some other battles, come alongside you and went through the GLA Academy as well. I assume they got those same things out of it that you got.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, we have so many success stories that I could connect the dots and say this is, they had some genesis or some nexus with Americans for Prosperity. For example, our current county commissioner, the first female county commissioner in Utah County, second largest county in the state, is currently Amelia Towers Gardner, who went through the GLA training with me. I believe you had her on the podcast.
And she was on the show, yeah?
Yes, and before that, she was the county clerk, so presiding over elections and the budget, and now those offices are separate. Anyhow, I have a lot of friends who are movers and shakers.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential. And here's your host, Jeff Crank.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of American Potential. When folks are young and planning out their future, you hear a lot about dreams of being a teacher, a police officer, stay-at-home mom. But how often do you hear someone say, I want to dive into politics, or I want to be an elected official? Not too often. Maybe just a handful. Sure, some head to college, earn a political science degree, and jump into the political arena. But others find a different path to making politics a full-time job. Now, often it starts when they encounter a government barrier, and then they stick around, noticing more barriers that need to be broken to expand freedom or opportunities for individuals. But for some, they want to take the extra step of not just working in politics, but serving in politics by representing their community, so they decide to run for office. Well, today's guest started her journey into politics when she got involved because of a local issue. Now, soon after that, she began working for Americans for Prosperity. And now she's been elected as a state senator in the state of Wyoming. I want to welcome Heidi Balderree, who is the newest state senator for District 22 in Utah. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Jeff.
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations. I haven't talked to you since you became a state senator. I have to call you senator now instead of just Heidi, just to be polite. But congratulations to you. This is really, it's really a great story.
It is.
So to me, I love telling stories like this because it is truly a story just of someone who got involved and just kind of took the next logical step and the next step and the next step. And, it sounds like you did this all for the right reasons. There's a lot of people who run for political office and they do it because they want to, be in some office or they want to do it. It seems like you really, truly got involved in the first place to make the world a better place, really, right? And to get rid of some of those barriers. But over time, you got better at it. You learned, you made connections, and this opportunity opened up and you took it, right?
That's exactly right.
So when you were growing up, what did you want to be? Was serving as an elected official ever something that you thought, hey, I want to do that?
No, not at all. No.
What did you want to be when you were young?
When I was young, I wanted to be a teacher, and I was. And then I think later in life, after college, after a few years, I thought I would like to be a diplomat. I had no idea how that was going to happen. But those are the things that I thought I might be doing.
Yeah. So, and you were a mom. I know you have a family. I've met some of your family. What made you first say, you know what, I want to get involved? I mean, did you always care about political issues or politics, or was that some one issue that really drove you?
Well, as far as being a good citizen was always important to me. back in the day, kind of dates me, but we subscribed to the print newspaper and, read the paper daily and voted in every election, did my homework, did my research. And I thought that was enough back in the day.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't.
What made it not be enough? What finally made you say, you know what, I've got to step into the arena here?
Well, it was in the early fall of 2014. And it happened to coincide with the year that my children, all four of my children were in school for a full day for the very first time. I found myself with a little bit of discretionary time, and there was a big local issue going on with the prison relocation. And I thought, I'll go to a cottage meeting, and I envisioned myself potentially passing out flyers or something very simplistic. And that's not what happened at all.
So what did happen?
So I went to this meeting. I found out that we were going to get organized, and, we went from meeting in someone's home, for a bunch of us. And then at the end of the day, things lose steam and some people dropped off, but there was a core group of us. We had combined two cities who were both on the short list. And we realized that joining and combining our efforts we were going to be more successful, and we would meet weekly in this person's home, often, more than once a week as needed. We created a Facebook page. We basically, what I now know to be comparative advantage, used everyone's strengths and gave them assignments that way. We built a float for a parade. We followed the committee meetings. We showed up at the Capitol. We organized a rally and protests. And what I thought was going to be a simple task of passing out flyers turned into so much more.
Yeah. And it seems like, that's something that you probably never imagined yourself doing, and you kind of learned it as you went along, right? You were probably at these meetings and say, well, we need to have a Facebook page, and who's good at Facebook, right? I mean, is that really how it went?
It really is. We had a guy who, he started doing, he created video content, and, I found myself being quoted in the newspaper and being invited on a radio show and being on TV and newspaper articles. And that was not in my background at all. But it became part of my new persona because I gained the skills that I needed to do to get the job done.
Yeah. Did you, as you went through it, did it ever become something that you thought, well, this is kind of fun? Or was it just always drudgery and work?
No, I was really motivated by the prospect of helping. I've kind of always had a kind of a service-oriented nature, served a service mission for my church for a year and a half in a foreign country. I took each of our four kids on a service mission for 2.5 weeks to impoverished countries outside of our own. When Hurricane Katrina happened in my area, they had a bunch of evacuees from Louisiana come up to Camp Williams near where we were. And I organized resources for 2 months. I worked with FEMA and the Red Cross and Camp Williams to these partners and basically got all the surrounding cities involved to help those who were displaced from that tragic event. And so, it just happened to be political in nature. And then all of a sudden I found myself being a resource, not only for this, but then of course you become a trusted resource. And so I would have the mayor then ask me to rally the troops for a municipal issue. And then there was a thing at the dump behind my house, and I found myself going to a county board of adjustment meeting. And then there was a salary increase for the county commissioners, and I found myself attending commission meetings. And then it really just, it spiraled from there to working on campaigns and taking on volunteer positions and eventually some paid positions and more elected service and appointed service.
Yeah. So it really just grew from that first meeting that you decided to go through or go to, and then, I guess little project after project fighting that first battle. And then you went from that on to other battles. And I'm sure that you built kind of an army, right? That came along with you. Did you have people who maybe were with you in the first battle that came along to the second battle that you got involved in?
Yeah, actually. So actually that was in 2014. AFP Utah, Americans for Prosperity came to Utah in 2015. And of course, our former state director of Utah, Heather Andrews, she at the time lived, roughly a mile or so from my house. And so she pulled me in right away, and I started volunteering there. And I was able to benefit fairly early on from some of the resources that the organization had. In particular, Grassroots Leadership Academy was a huge part of my journey. I went through all 3 levels of that training, with the level 3 ending up doing that in Washington, D.C. And some of those core folks who were the core people in this community fight actually ran for office, for city council, and some of them are still serving. And one recently became a state representative. So, really just from getting involved, for me, at least, it was very organic. And I know that for some of my other friends, it was an organic journey too, where they weren't poli-sci majors. I certainly wasn't. My undergraduate and graduate degrees had nothing to do with politics. And I think once the thing for me that kept me in the fray was, I know too much. I can't go anywhere. I can't pretend like I don't know. Someone's got to hold the flashlight.
Right.
So, and that's how it's been ever since. And I think another big thing for me was place and circumstance. So in the state of Utah, we have something unique that I hadn't experienced in the other places I've lived in my life. I grew up in the East Bay of San Francisco, later I went to college in Utah, but then moved to Washington State, lived in Eastern Washington, lived in Pennsylvania, Idaho for a time. But one of the things that I was newly exposed to through my adventures in politics in Utah was the caucus and convention system, which allowed for delegates to be actively involved in the political process, where as a state such as California, where I grew up, it was who you knew or if you could pay to play. So I would never even dream of participating in those kinds of states. And so I think the unique privilege that we have in our state to participate and really hold our elected officials' feet to the fire, talk with them face to face, where I have all the way from my U.S. senator down to my mayor and city council members who know me by name and who will respond to my messages. That is just a gift that I'm really thankful for.
Right. Well, you talked a little bit about Americans for Prosperity Foundation and taking that Grassroots Leadership Academy. You took level 1, 2, and 3, which are the 3 levels that they offer. What did you feel like that gave you as far as skill sets and more tools to bring to the fight? Well,
some of the things that the Americans for Prosperity had and has that I really consider before Americans for Prosperity came to the state, there were, a bunch of disparate groups who, maybe one was pro-life, one was a Second Amendment, election integrity. You had just a bunch of people not very organized or just one specific issue without a lot of resources. And the beautiful thing about Americans for Prosperity is that I had access all of a sudden to these resources like I-360 Call and I-360 Walk for campaigns or education campaigns, and resources to do events. And it was just, it still is something that I think makes it the premier grassroots organization in the state, and probably other states as well, is to have all of these resources housed in one place. And while we don't cover every issue, the thing that I always, used as a recruiting tool was, come, let us help make you better and more effective so that you can go out and be the best at whatever it is that is your particular passion. So you can transfer those skills anywhere. And as as a nonpartisan organization, I think it's just it's a beautiful thing to be able to offer that at no cost as a nonprofit to anyone who would like to get involved.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you met, you talked about having a lot of the people who were in that very first battle with you, or maybe some other battles, come alongside you and went through the GLA Academy as well. I assume they got those same things out of it that you got.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, we have so many success stories that I could connect the dots and say this is, they had some genesis or some nexus with Americans for Prosperity. For example, our current county commissioner, the first female county commissioner in Utah County, second largest county in the state, is currently Amelia Powers Gardner, who went through the GLA training with me. I believe you had her on the podcast.
And she was on the show. Yeah.
Yes. And before that, she was the county clerk. So presiding over elections and the budget. And now those offices are separate. Anyhow, I have a lot of friends who are movers and shakers who have been active participants in the organization and continue, on a lesser scale. The bad news is once you become involved in other things, it sometimes will take away the time you're able to volunteer with the group. But, even throughout the years where I was, 1 year I was elected to be secretary for 2 years for the Utah County Republican Party as their secretary. So I was very busy during those years. So, maybe wouldn't go in as often as I used to, but at no point did I have any desire to leave the org. Always wanted to touch base and attend events as possible. I love that they have with their AFP Foundation, they have the educational component where you could go learn about foreign policy or whatever the topic or flavor of the day was, and feel like you could get good information. They do the annual legislative boot camp, which is a great place where I like to really encourage people to go before the legislative session begins, so that they can feel comfortable and realize it's just a building, and this is what we do, and this is how you navigate it, and it's not scary, and open it up, and really by educating people, making them feel at home in a place where they should be comfortable.
So after you became a volunteer, went through the GLA classes, you decided to become a staff member for Americans for Prosperity, and you did a great job in that role. You did a lot of great things. I mean, Americans for Prosperity was involved in a lot of great policy victories during that time.
Yep.
What are some of the biggest accomplishments that you felt you were a part of, in Utah and maybe even nationally while you were staff at Americans for Prosperity?
So I remember we fought against the gas tax increase in 2018. We worked really hard to prevent the sales tax increase initiative, Our Schools Now. And we won that fight. We fought against Medicaid expansion. We opposed the OSHA Biden mandates. We lowered our state income tax rate multiple times. This year we finally got school choice passed. One of the biggest things that we did was we helped to reelect U.S. Senator Mike Lee by making over 400,000 phone calls just for his election. We helped pass a gig economy bill that would help give portable benefits to people like Uber drivers, gig economy workers, first of its kind in the nation, working with really good coalition partners to get really good things done in the state. I'm super proud of the work I did there. Today, I just met with the Utah Taxpayers Association, and we were, discussing the history of when they tried to put the sales tax on services, and they went around and used taxpayer dollars to go on tour to promote the idea. It was such a bad idea. They needed to promote it across the state, and then eventually they repealed it when they realized that it was a bad idea. So, those are just some of the ones that are at the top of my head, but. We staged a Bidenomics protest when Biden was in Utah down the street. We did ours at the Capitol, and if there's something happening in Utah, Americans for Prosperity usually has their hands in it.
Yeah. Well, and you had Americans for Prosperity Action engaged in the Senator Mike Lee effort. One of the things that I think of, and I know obviously Utah pretty well because that's part of the area that I oversee at the time for Americans for Prosperity. But just this great, and you mentioned it, this great school choice fight that you had, and you even had a governor who was a Republican who vetoed or basically said he was going to veto the bill. It didn't make it through the first time, but Americans for Prosperity, you and others there worked very hard to kind of educate and bring a coalition along, and you finally got that passed. And I mean, to see parents of Black Lives Matters parents down there fighting for school choice and education was such a great moment and so great to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, that's just one of the great battles. You know, you can always look back and think, you see kids, and we've done a lot of stories and episodes on the podcast of kids actually from Utah who have benefited from the school choice effort that was rolled out and the scholarships there. That you can always be really proud knowing that you were a part of that fight for sure.
Oh yeah.
What made you decide to get involved here and run? It was a very crowded field. Talk a little bit about the state Senate seat, the crowded field that it was, and how you were able to win.
Well, because we deal with policy reform and, being comfortable at the Capitol and doing this citizen lobbying. And it was something I already enjoyed. And I thought, the only thing closer to doing what I'm already doing right now would be to be a legislator, go from policy, reform advocate to policymaker. And, I thought, maybe one day, but to be frank, my current legislator, in my House representative for the state of Utah is fantastic. He just won his position as that he was the House Majority Whip last year. He's now the House Majority Leader. He was actually he's one of my mentors, Representative Jefferson Moss. He was one of my mentors. He happened to live 2 doors down from me. And we've known each other for over 2 decades. We actually both moved to California, moved back to the area around the same time. And, I think it's not a coincidence, the people that are put in our path and the opportunities that cross them. Now, this opportunity to become a legislator, again, I never considered running against my good friend because I'm very happy and pleased with the job that he's doing. And I wouldn't ever run just to run, especially if you've been in elections, if you get what you deserve. So,
yes.
Yeah,
right.
So I never considered that. And as far as our Senate seat was concerned, I actually helped him when he ran for our former senator run for House when he very first ran to be in the House of Representatives. And I thought, he's going to be in there for as long as he wants. And so, as you know, it's very hard to unseat an incumbent. And so I didn't foresee that there would be any opportunity. I wasn't, ambitious or desirous to move anywhere else. Just happy to support those in office and advocate for good reforms. And then my former senator resigned midterm, and I found myself in a position to do something that I thought I would do maybe one day, and that day came a lot earlier than anticipated. And so I jumped at the chance. It's a very attractive thing to not have an incumbent in that position. And a lot of other people thought so too. There were originally 14 of us. One dropped out. Wow. So one from my fellow city, Saratoga Springs, he dropped out. So then there were 13. And with those 13 candidates, I was kind of the outlier. The largest part of the district is the city of Lehigh. And our district encompasses part of Saratoga Springs, part of Lehigh, part of Eagle Mountain, teeny tiny sliver of Draper, which is in Salt Lake County. So we've got 2 counties in these cities. And I'm from Saratoga Springs, and the 12 other candidates were all from Lehigh. So we had a former legislator in the mix. We had the daughter of the former Speaker of the House, first female Speaker of the House. in there. We had, 20-year DC lobbyist in there. There's some very well-funded, multimillionaire types in there. Some really passionate advocates in there who just wanted to make a difference. And so it was a really competitive race, but I think it helped step up everyone's game, or at least it did for me, right? Because I knew I had tough competition. And so after 6 rounds of balloting, I came out on top.
Yeah, that's great. And I can tell you, I'm sure in a vacancy committee like that, your grassroots experience, right? The fact that you were someone who had paid attention to the grassroots, were involved in the grassroots, that probably made a gigantic difference. And it's a lot better than being a millionaire in a race
right.
like that. I'd rather be the grassroots person.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And that's the thing is, at the end of the day, some of these newcomers to the scene just didn't have the depth of experience or the relationships, not only with the grassroots community, but with the coalition partners, with the legislators that I had, grown organically and developed over, the long haul, the last basically decade of these small and simple things of taking opportunities to serve, as I did. And I didn't just wake up one day, as maybe some of the others did. And I applaud them, right? Anyone who throws their hat in the ring deserves my respect. But I think that for me made the difference in a stiff field of competition. That was the difference maker.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. So what are you hoping to be able to get accomplished while you're in the state Senate? What would you like to see changed?
Well, the first year, I've already got 2 bill files opened. The first one is actually an expansion of a really good law that the Americans for Prosperity partnered with Libertas on, a youth entrepreneurship bill that the existing law as it is said, we think, I guess the nickname for this law is the lemonade law. Right. Well, kids should not have to have a business license to go sell Pokemon cards or hot chocolate or lemonade or whatever. Right. They shouldn't be under those kind of onerous burdens as a child. And so that law passed. And it's not a law yet, but hopefully what my bill will do is expand that from 17-year-olds to 8. Well, originally, when I sent it to the draft attorney, I said, let's make it 18 years old because, we still got 18-year-olds in high school. They're still living at home. They're still not full adults yet. They ought to benefit from the same thing as the rest of the youth. And then I met one of my legislators in the House. I was talking to him about the bill and he said, well, yeah, I didn't graduate till I was 19. And I thought, we got to go back to the attorneys. We got to change it to 18 or still in high school. Now, we're not talking adult high schools. We're talking the traditional high school. And so that's what the bill will do. And I'm fairly confident that we could get other people on the same page to let kids experiment, let them be entrepreneurs without those heavy regulations. And then the second bill file that I've opened has to do with giving basically people the ability to actually change things from sales tax bond initiatives. So as the law currently is in the state of Utah, if you want to do a referendum on a sales tax bond, you're required to get 1 in 5 or 20% of registered voters to sign your petition. And you have 30 days to do it. Well, that's next to impossible. Now, I agree that it should be difficult. Otherwise, why do we have representative government? Why do we have elected officials? It should be sufficiently hard. So we decided to keep the threshold at 20% of registered voters, but we thought we need to extend that time to 60 days to give people a fighting chance. And so that's the second bill file that I've opened. And then got some others in the wings, but those 2 are moving ahead.
Well, that's great. And so great to see this story, from beginning to end and I hope it inspires other people. And that's really the point, hopefully, of this episode of our podcast, is to inspire people to take the same journey that you took, right? And so you start with that first step is like, I don't like what's going on. I'm going to get involved, and look where it ended up for you. So I really appreciate you taking the time, Heidi, and joining us. And, let us know how we can help. We look forward to you being an AFP policy champion in the Utah State Legislature. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.